Cast lead has been ongoing for over 2 weeks now, but rumblings in the north and on the diplomatic front can be heard. Here to provide analysis is Yoni Kapinski. Shalom, Yoni.
Shalom, Elliot.
So tell us, Yoni, what's the latest on Operation Cast Lead? What's happening? Where are things going?
Well, Elliot, when looking at things from the side, many are asking, is the IDF sitting in the same place, maybe waiting for the political echelon to decide what's next? But when you talk to the IDF officials, they all say one thing: everything's continuing as planned. The IDF is continuing to act cautiously and determinedly, fighting against the Arab terrorists in Arab-occupied Gaza. The activities has continued primarily in the north and around the Gaza city, with ground forces engaging Hamas with close support from the Israeli Air Force. Now, there were some attacks in the outskirts of the Gaza city, but so far no actual massive entry. Now, according to estimates, hundreds of Hamas terrorists were killed, but it's important to remember that before the operation began, the number of Hamas combatants was estimated at almost 20,000. So in terms of numbers, there's a lot of work ahead. But it's not only about numbers, Elliot. According to reports, the Hamas's political power, their political leadership, is worth nothing at this point. The leaders are hiding away, and there are already Arabs coming out loud against the Hamas leadership. Now, commentators are saying that so far Hamas has taken steep losses, but that it should be remembered that other terror groups had been on the verge of defeat by the IDF, only to be rescued by political missteps or foreign pressure, such as when Arafat's Fatah was rescued in Beirut by the intervention of the United States.
So, Yoni, tell us about future operations. What is Israel planning in the upcoming stages?
So, yesterday we started receiving reports about reservists who were telling their family members some way or another that they're going in. Wives received messages like, "I'll be unavailable in the next few days," or "I have to turn off my cell phone." Now, the IDF didn't confirm that any expansion of the operation is underway, and indeed we understood later that many reservists have entered the Gaza Strip, but at this point the operation is not expanding significantly. Rather, the reservists who have been training since the operation began are now joining the troops who are in to help with the current mission. Now, the reservist job is to back up and relieve brigades of regular soldiers who are still doing mandatory service. Those soldiers have been fighting continuously for the past 2 weeks in Cast Lead. And so at this time, Israel is at decision time, either to intensify the counter-terrorist campaign to stage 3, or wind down the fighting and reach some sort of ceasefire with the Hamas. Now, in terms of the ceasefire, Egypt has been moderating talks in Cairo to reach an end to the fighting. The EU, particularly France, is putting strong pressure on Israel to call an end to the fighting. The U.S. has essentially declared itself neutral, refusing to veto a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire. Though in response, the Olmert government asserted Israel's right to take whatever actions deemed necessary for the defense of her citizens. So right now there's a big push for the Egyptian ceasefire, though if Israel and Hamas, who are also under internal pressures not to accept the ceasefire, will agree, that remains to be seen.
What's your assessment? Does Cairo want a ceasefire that's good for Hamas, or possibly something that also would benefit Israel?
The answer here is not really either. Egypt has a very cold peace with Israel and has been preparing their army and people for war with the Jewish state for many years already. But Hamas is part of the International Muslim Brotherhood, which is the primary political opposition in Egypt to the Mubarak government. So the Egyptian elite, which rules the country, does not really want a victory for Hamas. This would, of course, strengthen the Brotherhood, who are far more popular with the Egyptian people than the ruling Nazarites. But if Israel can be weakened without strengthening Hamas, Egypt would prefer that be the end result.
How far along do you think the ceasefire talks are right now? Do you see the end near? Is Israel going to cave in? What's Israel's response going to be?
Now, the diplomatic initiative calls for indirect Egyptian brokered negotiations with Hamas and has been authorized by the government to continue. Amos Gilad is representing Israel in the talks. Jerusalem does not see these talks as binding in terms of reaching any agreement with Hamas. The willingness to explore a diplomatic initiative stems from the fact that it might achieve Israel's operational goals without it having to venture forces deeper into Gaza. Now, according to Amos Gilad, Hamas is aware the fighting is not going well for them, and right now they want to stop it. They want to stop the IDF, even if only for the short term, to regain some breathing space. Now, the would-be ceasefire is still being negotiated, so the final terms are up in the air. But some force besides Hamas would control the Philadelphia corridor between Gaza and Egypt. The fighting between Hamas and Israel, of course, would end. Ceasefire. Hamas is also demanding to retain power in Gaza until at least January 2010.
There have been reports that Syria is trying to warm the border up in the north. What is the actual situation up north with Syria and with the Hezbollah?
Yeah, up north early yesterday morning, an unknown gunman fired shots at a group of soldiers and civilians. What were they doing there? They were performing some routine maintenance on the border fence with Syria. No one was hurt, though some vehicles were damaged. Now, the incident occurred near the religious community of Alonei HaBashan. Israel, of course, filed a complaint with the United Nations, and the IDF combed the area, though an announcement was made soon after that life could go on as normal in the region. There were no new threats.
Yoni, thank you so much for enlightening us on what's going on.